Hi, my name is Daniel Meredith, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about the psychology behind anxiety and prayer. Now, everybody has anxiety. It's one of the worst feelings in the world, and we've all experienced it. Probably most of the time, we experience it on a daily occurrence. It's a horrible feeling. But one of the good things about anxiety is we know that Jesus also felt anxiety. We know that he felt anxiety to the point where he had tears coming out of he had blood in his tears. Now, Jesus taught us how to deal with anxiety. And what he did is he taught us to pray. Whenever we're feeling anxiety, he taught us to pray. Now, there's a number of different types of anxiety. There's clinical anxiety, which really is something else, and we're not going to really deal with that today. We're going to deal with the general, everyday level of anxiety that we all experience in our daily lives. And those are typically what that type of anxiety is typically what psychologists call cognitive anxiety. Now, cognitive anxiety is different than somatic or physical anxiety. Cognitive anxiety usually manifests in the types of things that are called cognitive distortions. Cognitive distortions are things like obtrusive thoughts, overthinking, catastrophic thinking, and what ifs. Now, obtrusive thoughts are the types of thoughts that just pop into our minds that we can't really control. We don't want them there. We can't help them being there. They just show up, and we try to push them away. Sometimes we can't. Those are obtrusive thoughts. Sometimes they might be images. Sometimes they might be language and then kind of verbal thoughts. Sometimes they might be memories. Whatever they are, they're obtrusive, and they continually come back, and they seem to haunt us. And we don't seem to be able to control them. Overthinking is when you just simply can't get out of thinking about something bad or negative, or you're dreading something. You're continually thinking about it over and over and over again. Or you're overly rationalizing something, trying to come up with every single scenario and try to really strategize to the point where we're driving ourselves almost sick over it. And it really does do a lot of damage to our mental health when we overthink things, and we can't stop overthinking things when we feel like we have a problem that's creating anxiety in us. Catastrophic thinking is another form of cognitive distortion that's associated with cognitive anxiety. And catastrophic thinking is when we just seem to always think the worst is going to happen. And that's also almost an unstoppable feeling, that we feel like something really, really bad is going to happen, or we're not going to get the positive outcome that we're hoping for. In fact, we're convinced that we're going to experience the negative outcome that we're sort of dreading. And then we have the endless series of what ifs that seems to just continue. It's a barrage. What if this? What if that? What if blah, blah, blah? And it just never seems to end. Now, these four traits, or these four types of thinking: obtrusive thoughts, overthinking, catastrophic thinking, and what ifs, are signs of cognitive anxiety. They're types of cognitive distortions. Now, Jesus, a minute ago I mentioned, although he was fully human and fully divine, he was God, but he also dealt with anxiety. And we know this because when he was in the garden thinking about his eventual trial and crucifixion, or the inevitable death, we know that he was so worried that he prayed to his Father, and he prayed to the point where he was scared, to the point where he had blood mixed with his tears. And that's what the Bible tells us, and that's what we have an image of when we think of Jesus in the garden praying. And he was so afraid, he asked his friends to stay awake with him, but they couldn't. They fell asleep. And we know this because we read this in the Bible. What do psychologists have to say about these types of things? Psychologists talk about ways to moderate, or ways to sort of navigate ourselves away from cognitive anxiety. And that's one of the main tools for that is the cognitive behavioral therapy model of catch it, check it, and change it. Now, what that means is when we're having cognitive distortions or negative thoughts that we can't seem to control, we want to first recognize that we're having it. We want to catch it. We want to catch it in action. We want to catch it while it's happening. We want to check it. We want to see that try to make an assessment on whether or not it's rational, or whether we're just scaring ourselves. Is it a real possibility? Is it something that we should really be worried about? Should we really be catastrophizing it? Should we really be overthinking about this? Should we really be going through an endless cycle of what ifs about this situation? So we want to check it. So we want to catch it while it's happening, and we want to check it. We want to test the reality of the thought. We want to test the likelihood of it. We want to test on whether or not it's helpful to think about it. We want to check it. Then we want to change it. We want to change it into something good. So we could start to pray. We could change it by just thinking of something positive in our lives. This is hard. It's not going to be easy. But what happens is, if we practice this, it'll become easier. Instead of continually dwelling on the negative thoughts, we will find it easier with practice, with dedication, and with discipline to change the thoughts. But we have to catch it and check it first. So the 3 C's of cognitive behavioral therapy are catch it, check it, and change it. Catch it while it's happening, check to see the rationality of it, to see whether or not it's something that is likely or rational, and then we want to change it and just try to change our thoughts. Sometimes we might have to distract ourselves. We can also just think about Jesus praying in the garden and get his comfort when we're feeling scared, and that's how we can change our thoughts. So when we're having anxious thoughts, what we don't want to do is overthink and just fall into the cycle of distortions, what ifs, catastrophic thinking, because what happens is this reinforces the anxious thinking. Overthinking will create more anxiety, and that'll create more overthinking. Anxious thoughts will create more what ifs and catastrophic thinking, and that's going to create more anxious thoughts and more anxiety, and we're going to be stuck in that circle. So we absolutely have to catch it and check it and change it. It's really the only way for us to get out of it. When we're having fear and distress and anxiety, we have to, again, check it, but we have to stop immediately the impulsivity and the automaticity. We have to stop our automatic cycle of thoughts. We have to stop the habits that drive these thoughts. We have to stop focusing on the worldly distractions that are creating the anxiety. We have to stop focusing on the material world sometimes. We have to focus on our soul, our spirituality. We have to really focus on God. So one of the ways we can change it after we checked it is to pray. We can focus on our spiritual devotions. And ultimately we can focus on heaven, where Jesus promises us that there are no tears. Now this really is a powerful way to change the way we think. And sometimes when we're battling daily anxiety, cognitive anxiety, it's really the only way. It's really the only long-term solution, is to focus on the Lord. Sometimes we just have to do it. And we're going to be able to do this if we just immediately catch it, check it, and change it. We can change it through prayer. We can change it through a spiritual devotion. We can change it by focusing on heaven. And we will one day be there without any tears, without any anxiety, with no distress. That's what we should do. And we can always use Jesus as a model for this, because we have to remember that even though he was God, he worried, and he cried, and he wept, and we will too. And we have to daily battle this anxiety. Another thing that is possible is that we're under spiritual attack, and the only way to win a spiritual assault is through focusing on Jesus. That's the only real way to do it. So when we're having anxiety, really we want to use the model, the psychological model of cognitive behavioral therapy. We want to catch it, check it, and change it. And we can do that through prayer. My LinkedIn link is in the episode description, and please contact me if you would like to discuss my consulting or writing services. And please subscribe to my YouTube channel and be on the lookout for more tips on how to use practical psychology in your everyday life.